Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, the housing crisis, as we all know, has hit low-income renters the hardest. Rising rents, lack of available affordable housing, and stagnant incomes make this population the most susceptible to falling into homelessness. A homelessness increase across the state, and in recognition of rising rent burden being a primary driver of this homelessness, local jurisdictions are increasingly turning to housing assistance programs to be part of the solution. This is a homelessness prevention measure that will help to stem the tide of homelessness and ensure those efforts are effective. SB 329 will enable families with housing assistance to successfully apply for and obtain housing that they can afford in neighborhoods of opportunity without being literally turned away at every door and forced to return their assistance unused. As we seek solutions to housing supply issues, we must ensure struggling renters can access existing housing through existing subsidy programs while supply-side measures play out. I've had conversations with many of you about the Section 8 program, and so a number of very reasonable questions have come up. For example, how difficult is it for a voucher-assisted family or individual to find housing? Families and individuals often wait years to receive rental assistance, and even when they can afford the rent being asked for with their rental assistance, they often have a difficult time finding a landlord that will accept the payment. Once an eligible family on the wait list is issued a voucher, they typically are only given 60 days to successfully find and lease housing with their assistance. If they are unable to meet this timeline, the assistance is revoked, which means they lose their voucher. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development published a report that looked at the accessibility of housing for families with Section 8 vouchers. The study found that for every 39 rental advertisements for apartments that a family with housing assistance could afford, there was only one that did not explicitly prohibit voucher holders from applying. You've seen the notices: 2-bedroom, 1-bath, no Section 8. That's what we're talking about. Indeed, were SB 329's protections in place, we would have more people using their vouchers. In situations where those protections are not in place, we see denial rates as high as 75% or more. Colleagues, I believe this situation is unacceptable. If we found ourselves facing data that 75% of grocery stores refuse food stamps and people couldn't use that assistance to eat, it would be perceived as a failure of public policy. SB 329 represents a proven solution. The HUD study found that in jurisdictions with source of income protections, this denial rate was almost cut in half. Folks have expressed concern about whether or not rental property owners would be forced to accept all applicants who use housing vouchers. Clarification: this bill will not require that all landlords accept every voucher-holding applicant, nor increase the number of vouchers in the market. The bill requires landlords to allow assistant residents to submit applications while also allowing landlords to apply their rental criteria to accept or deny a family with assistance in the same way they would accept or deny any other potential tenant. The bill also does not dictate what landlords may charge for rent. If an assisted family is able to afford the rent being charged, the bill allows them to apply, but does not force landlords to rent at any specific level or to comply with Section 8 payment standards. Lastly, a number of you have asked questions with regard to the Section 8 process by which you could get your unit verified. And I think it's really important that we're all clear about what it takes. So what steps are required of landlords to receive Section 8 and other housing assistance? The landlord completes an agreement with the housing authority which states that they will maintain the property and comply with the program regulations and housing. If the unit is approved and the rent being charged meets the payment standard for the program, the tenant is allowed to use their assistance for the unit and signs a lease with the landlord. I think it's really important to know that housing authorities all across the state are trying to use technology, allowing people to kind of pre-apply, have units pre-approved, et cetera, to try to expedite the process. I've shared with some of you documentation, particularly with regard to HACLA in Los Angeles County, that clarifies that it does not take as long as 2 months to get a unit approved. It can happen within a shorter period of time, up to a week and a half to 2 weeks. So we've worked very hard to provide as much clarification as possible to all of you so you understand that the basic tenet of this bill is to make sure that one's source of income doesn't become a source of discrimination. That just because I have a housing voucher, I shouldn't be treated any differently from anyone else who applies for your unit and can afford to pay the rent. As we talk about ways in which we want to address our housing stock crisis, our homelessness crisis, we must capitalize on the current federally funded program, Section 8, that works when landlords actually step up to the plate and accept it. With that, colleagues, I ask for an aye vote on SB 329.
Senator Mitchell, you may close.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I appreciate the opportunity. Let me first address my colleague from Santa Monica. I don't want him to think I forgot his question. With regard to the inconsistencies of how local governments, primarily housing authorities across the state, deal with their Section 8 responsibilities. And I think, yes, I've got municipalities in my district that do very well, and as a result, landlords welcome Section 8, and I too have heard some of the complaints specifically with regard to Los Angeles, as did the City Council and others, which is why the Housing Authority produced in the end of 2018, less than 6 months ago, a report back, the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles and the Los Angeles Housing Community Investment Department, with consultation from the City Attorney's Office, report regarding city ordinance to protect affordable housing opportunities for renters, utilizing rental assistance for other sources of income as payment. On page 4 of that report, page 6 of that report, it states, permission to read? Thank you. HACLA's stated policy is that all initial inspections and re-inspections are scheduled within 2 to 3 days if the unit is ready for inspection. HACLA is also working to process annual rent increases timely and does process rent increases retroactively if applicable. And so we've heard a lot of different time frames. I heard from a colleague today that they heard that it takes as much as 2 to 3 months. And so we are working hard to get a clear picture specifically from LA County about how long it really does take. As I stated previously, I think that housing authorities have heard that complaint and are working hard to really try to create minimal delays for landlords in navigating their process. They're working actively to reduce the time for inspection. Some are using pre-inspection programs and real-time electronic inspections to reduce delays. So I think that there are examples across the state where technology is being used to try to expedite the process. Could LA County do a better job? Without question. Does LA County perhaps have the largest pool of vouchers? I don't know that for a fact, but based on the population, I would assume so. And so I think we have a collective responsibility to work arm in arm, hand in hand with our local governments to figure out, is it resources, what is the case, but to put pressure on them to make sure that government isn't creating a bottleneck that's complicating our collective ability to tap into a federally funded program to help people stay housed, the population who are most vulnerable because of all of the issues we have raised here on this floor today and talk about ad nauseum based on what we confront when we go home to our districts every day. Lastly, I believe I would say in response to continue the points made by my colleague from San Diego, the point of the bill is to end discrimination based on source of income. And I guess we have to ask ourselves, who do we think is worth helping? There are senior voucher programs, there are veteran voucher programs. Section 8 typically focuses on low-income families. There are voucher programs that help those with physical disabilities. Who is worth helping, in your individual opinion? You know, renters get a bad rap. college students who rent. We have a real bias and a perception of those who rent. I don't know what we believe, that they aren't going to value the property, that they don't want to live in healthy, habitable standards, but renters get a bad rap. The community here in Sacramento where I rent, because we're here 4 days a week, has a stipulation that you can't use the benefits of the club and the pool if you're a renter. And I'm certain the rent I'm paying probably covers the whole mortgage of the property. And so renters get a bad rap. And so I just ask that we consider what is the real issue with regard to this bill. We've talked about the fact that it's not going to increase vouchers in the system. It doesn't add an additional burden on housing authorities because there aren't additional vouchers coming into the system. We've worked to talk about how we can really hold housing authorities' feet to the fire to make sure that they aren't complicating this process by creating long delays. The question is, who is worth helping? And the Section 8 program, a federally funded program, is designed to help low-income families and prevent them from being on the street where far too many currently are. With that, I would ask for your favorable consideration of Senate Bill 329.
Ayes 24, noes 11. The measure passes.